We are facing a crisis. Greenhouse gases are destroying our atmosphere and are taking catastrophic effects on our environment today. One major culprit is the prevalent use of non-renewable energy, particularly the burning of coal and natural gases. We need to make a transition to cleaner, renewable energy sources such as nuclear, solar, and water-powered energy sources. There should also be a move to limit or outlaw the practice of fracking, as it is also detrimental to the environment around us. However, if we are to scale back our consumption of natural gas and coal, it should be noted that such a move will have an impact on said industries. For example, the coal mining industry, areas like West Virginia and Pennsylvania and other Appalachian states where mining is very common will be hit very hard economically. So, Mr. Hendrickson, as you are here on behalf of the federal government, we will discuss how is our planet warming, what is causing it to warm, how to mitigate these causes, potential replacements to these causes, and how to support jobs that are impacted by our proposal today. The motivating factor behind our desire to scale back coal and natural gas usage is global warming. Global warming is caused in large part by a phenomenon called the greenhouse effect, which is an overabundance of solar energy trapped in the atmosphere by greenhouse gases. These greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. Carbon dioxide is released through the burning of fossil fuels, trees, and solid waste. Methane is released through the production of coal, natural gas, and oil, as well as through the waste of livestock. It should be noted that it's not as abundant, but it is much more potent than CO2. So while it is not found as often in the atmosphere, methane of a similar size to carbon dioxide will have a much greater effect on the atmosphere and on the temperature. Nitrous oxide is released mainly in agricultural and industrial activities, and it is also released through the combustion of fossil fuels and solid waste. Now, what increased temperatures mean, they mean that we will see rising sea levels, melting glaciers, and much more unpredictable weather, which is very dangerous to ourselves and the animals that we share the planet with. Coal is one of the biggest carbon pollutants in the world. Over 90% of our carbon emissions from electricity generation came from coal-fired power plants. Coal mining also expels methane, and it has been linked to the acidification of water streams. And it accounted for 33% of the United States' energy consumption in 2018. So we are using it a lot, and it can afford to be scaled back. However, it's only about 33 to 40% efficient. So for as much as we are burning off, and as much carbon dioxide as we are releasing through our use of coal, we're only getting about 33 to 40% of that energy back, which is definitely means that it's not worth it. It should be noted that our scaling back on our consumption of coal will take a heavy toll on the mining industry. There are 40,000 miners employed as of 2020, and we need to ensure that these miners are properly compensated while they search for new employment. Some potential solutions are we could prioritize them in offering jobs at clean energy plants like nuclear plants or hydroelectric plants. Although, as a member of the federal government, you should understand that you will likely face heavy lobbying from coal-heavy states and Appalachian states. However, to potentially counteract that or minimize that, you could prioritize revitalizing the states that will be hit the hardest economically. Another major culprit of our global warming is natural gas. Now, there are some positives associated with it, some of which are that it is cleaner than gasoline and diesel. It employs 1.2 million people, so it is very profitable. And the infrastructure to transport it is readily available, so we're not consistently manufacturing new means of transportation. Some negatives are that it is non-renewable, so like coal, once it is burned, it is done. You can't use it anymore. And although not much CO2 is released, a lot of methane is, which again is much more potent than CO2 and can have a worse impact on our atmosphere. And The practice of fracking must be involved in order to be able to harvest it and use it. And fracking is the practice of drilling into the earth and directing a high pressure water mixture at rocks to release the gas inside of them. It does allow drilling companies to reach oil and gas reserves that might otherwise not be accessible, but some negatives are that it uses large amounts of water. It's been known to taint water, actually. Um, Arsenic has been found in water nearby and the water that it uses, and it's been linked to earthquakes. Some solutions that we would like to use are renewable energy sources, one of which being nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is an incredibly efficient way to generate electricity. Um, one one pencil eraser sized uranium pellet produces the same amount of energy as 17,000 cubic feet of natural gas, or 1 ton of coal. Now, it is actually very safe, and toxic waste is not much of a concern. Um, in fact, one person who uses nuclear energy for their entire life only produces about a soda can's worth of nuclear fuel. And in the 5 decades that we have used nuclear energy, we have only produced about a football field's worth of toxic waste that's about 10 meters deep, which, when compared to other methods of electricity generation, that is actually remarkably low. It can also operate around the clock, and there are no geographical limitations that other sources like hydroelectric might have. Another potential energy source is solar energy. Some positives are that it is cost effective, it works in many climates, whether it's hot or cold, and producing 1,000 kilowatts of solar power reduces emissions by 8 pounds of sulfur dioxide, 5 pounds of nitrogen oxides, and over 1,400 pounds of carbon dioxide. So that is a lot of emissions that are being removed from the atmosphere through the use of solar energy. Some negatives are that it is not perfectly green. Manufacturing has been known to release greenhouse gases. It can't work when the sun is down or obscured, so that makes it geographically limited. And it's only about 30 to 36% efficient. So there are other more efficient ways to be able to harvest electricity. However, this is still a very clean method of harvesting. And the energy payback from manufacturing typically takes a little less than 4 years. Another potential source is hydroelectricity. Some positives are that it does not use any fossil fuels, much like nuclear and solar. It is up to 90% efficient, so there is not much potential wasted. Most of the water that travels through dams are used to generate electricity. Flow of the water is typically constant, so there's no real need to shut it down unless there's damages. And once it is operational, costs are relatively low. Some negatives are that it can impact the surrounding ecosystem by disrupting river flows and such. It can be costly to build, and it is geographically limited. And so, in summary, greenhouse gases are having a catastrophic effect on our environment. To combat this, we must cut back on our use of pollution-filled sources, such as coal and natural gas, and instead use renewable sources, such as nuclear energy, solar energy, and hydroelectric energy. But in doing so, we also do need to help the displaced workers find new employment. And with that information, Mr. Hendrickson, I am asking you and your constituents and the federal government to carefully consider what I have laid out for you today in order to protect and preserve our environment for our future.